Well, I will, maybe while we're waiting for Mr. Lopez to do the introduction for Hayes, um, I can just touch base on our agenda for this afternoon. So we do have, we recognize that this is a digital format. We normally would have these meetings in person. Kind of imagine, the gym with multiple poster board set up to get feedback, via Post-it notes and, in-person conversations. With COVID, we ended up opting to go this digital route. So we appreciate this may be challenging to provide feedback and discussions. However, we really do appreciate everyone jumping in on this. And at the end of this session, we'll talk through about different ways to provide feedback. And we are still aiming to get an in-person open house on the draft conceptual plan in fall, as in addition to what we're going to be discussing today. As we move through the session today, if there are any questions, please type them into the chat box. And then Lisa Neeb, Reflow's Green and Healthy Schools Project Manager, will be collecting those questions so that we can respond to them at the question periods of the session for today. With that being said, Principal Lopez, are you on yet?
He typed that he's having technical difficulties.
Okay, no worries. So I do just want to kind of call out, this planning effort is sponsored by the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. And we'll be talking more about what that means, but this is revolving around the intent to manage as much stormwater on school grounds and throughout MMSD's sewer service area as possible. And so, Jay, if you could just mention a little bit more about why MMSD is sponsoring this effort, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, so I'm from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. And so our number one mission is to keep the lake and our water clean. And we do that obviously by taking all the wastewater from our region and cleaning it. And in our area, especially where Hayes is located, that also includes stormwater. So all the water that hits your property can also enter the sewer system, and in heavy rains can overwhelm our system, which can lead to overflows. And so we're trying to prevent that. And this is an effort to move that along. And so that's our number one thing, is just basically protecting public health by keeping the water clean. And then, green infrastructure, which is some of the things that you guys have in your conceptual plan, like the bioswales, like the trees, things like that, really help soak up the water naturally. And that does many other good things too, like giving you shade and, other cool things. But from our perspective, we focus on keeping that water out of the sewer. So that's why you might see some elements in here that are new to you, but are very important to protect the lake.
Thank you for that, Jay. So we're coming from a perspective of trying to manage as much stormwater on the school grounds as possible. With that being said, we can also do some really great things. If we're gonna remove asphalt, not all of it, but we can also talk about outdoor classroom space, improved recreational facilities, and some other really great components that we'll talk through as we get further. Before we get further though, I do want to provide an opportunity for any elected officials that may be on the line that would like to introduce themselves. Dr. Baez, I think I saw you log in. If you wouldn't mind just unmuting yourself and introducing yourself, that would be much appreciated.
Sure. My name is Tony Baez, and I am the representative of the Milwaukee Public School Board for District Number 6. Hayes falls within District Number 6. And I'm here to participate at the request of Principal Lopez, because I feel that this is the kind of project that is important to our community and important to Hayes, and important to the whole issue of, basically greening and redevelopment and what MMSD is proposing, sort of like making sure that we work and contain those rains that are affecting our systems. And I would like to help in whatever way I can. So that's what I'm here.
Very good, thank you. Alderman Perez, too. I think I may have seen you log in as well. Are you on, and can you provide just a brief introduction? Alderman Perez is the representative for Hayes's district. Alderman Perez has also been a commissioner at MMSD and has been a supporter of Green and Healthy Schools in the past for several years and multiple projects. And I know he's interested in Hayes and as we go forward. So with that
Justin, sorry, I was finally able to log on. I was having technical difficulties, so I had to switch from Google Chrome to Internet Explorer, so I apologize.
No worries, all that fun stuff. If yeah, Mr. Lopez, if you wouldn't mind providing just a introduction and then welcome, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Dr. Baez, Alderman Perez, and everyone who's joining us, especially Reflow for working with us on this redevelopment plan for our playground. I also want to thank all the teachers that are on the green team, Mr. Falk, Ms. Villarreal, Noah Jimenez, Mr. Park, Ms. Ellison, Ms. Arellano, Ms. Kirsting, Ms. Sweeney, the parent coordinator, Ms. Mercado, and all the parents and students that helped us so far. The assistant principals, Ms. Soto, Mr. Garcia, everyone that's been part of this process to make sure that our kids have somewhere nice to play and a little bit more greenery to all that asphalt in the back playground. But I just want to say thank you. I want to say I know there's students and parents that are on here. Just saying thank you for being part of this. We do miss you guys. I hope everyone's staying safe at home, and thank you for attending this meeting and to provide any feedback on the project that we're going to be working with Reflow on.
Perfect, thank you. So also before we get started here, we are recording this session, so anyone that can't participate today, they still have access to the recorded version. And also we'll be flipping the page here at, what is it, 5:30? Is that true? Or is it 6 o'clock? We'll be switching, 5:45. We'll be switching to the Spanish version as well. So we're gonna go through the exact same presentation in a Spanish format as well. So when 5:45 rolls around, we're gonna kind of hit pause and we're gonna switch over.
Justin, it's actually at 5:30.
5:30, thank you for that correction. Perfect, 5:30. All right, so with that being said, Reflow is a nonprofit in the Milwaukee area. One of our program areas is Green and Healthy Schools. We also support rainwater harvesting for urban agriculture, innovative placemaking, which includes examples like Fondy Park and Green Tech Station on the northwest side of Milwaukee, Paliafito Park and Walker's Point and others. We also have a program dedicated to Milwaukee Water Stories. It's sharing all sorts of different stories from across Milwaukee through different digital media. And we do have a high school foreman's program where we hire 10 students with Arts at Large from Bradley Tech High School to support these various programs, including Green and Healthy Schools. We did have students participate in collecting stories and documenting the schoolyard redevelopment projects. They're also actively involved in creating benches and signage and other activities that are supportive of the overall effort as well. Several years ago, we helped to organize the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee. This is a regional network of practitioners, agencies, and funders that are all coming around the same table to share resources and lessons learned around greener, healthier schools. That can also be curricular connections. And then also each year we organize the annual Green Schools Conference. Last year was the 4th year, and we had about 300 people there, about 40 exhibitors. Unfortunately, this year we had to cancel it because of COVID. However, we are talking about trying to replace a component of that by providing a webinar that focuses in on local water curricular connections as well. But the consortium, I just wanted to kind of make a note here that there is this larger network that is outside of Hayes and outside of Reflow and others that are very supportive of your school and other schools that are going through this effort as well. This is intended to provide a little bit of a visual for everyone that a lot of urban schools have been covered in asphalt over the past several decades, but they don't necessarily have to look like that. That was made by decisions to reduce maintenance costs essentially a long time ago. We now know that there are environmental and social impacts to all of this hardscape, and schools can look different. This is on the far right-hand corner is a picture of Maryland Avenue Montessori on the east side of Milwaukee, and there have been a number of really great projects locally, and the consortium through the annual conference and these regular meetings is a really great opportunity to learn from what those other schools have done, especially on engaging students and local communities, and how we can learn from those past successes as well. This is the schoolyard redevelopment planning process. So with reflow, with the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, Fund for Lake Michigan, Green Schools Consortium Milwaukee, Community Design Solutions, which is led by Carolyn from UW Milwaukee School of Agriculture, or School of Architecture, and Milwaukee Public Schools have gone through this multi-year effort, and we're now in the 4th annual cohort of schoolyard redevelopment projects. It starts with a full year of conceptual planning, which we're in now with Hayes, and then a full year of fundraising, followed by detailed design and permitting and construction. And we started with 2 pilot schools that went into construction 2 years ago. We are celebrating the first cohort of schools that finished construction last summer, and we have each year for the following years, assuming funds can be raised, 5 schoolyard redevelopment projects each year for the foreseeable future. Last year, we were able to raise about $2.8 million in conjunction with MPS and all of our project partners to support the 5 schools that are going into construction starting literally next week, which is all very exciting. I just want to also call out some of the visuals of these projects. They are intended to support school-wide activities. So this is a visual example of Longfellow Community School. They decided around Earth Day to have a big community cleanup, and so they incorporated that into their planning effort as well. Again, CDS supports this effort by hiring graduate students from UW Milwaukee to create renderings and plan drawings that support the conceptual planning. And then we do work with the consultants that are hired to support the engineering and architecture program, or design drawings, so that they are working with students and maintenance staff to inform the detailed designs for these plans. And then we are really striving to make sure that these projects are feasible, so that we do end up getting to be able to build these projects in the end as well, and engaging students throughout the process wherever possible. These are a couple examples. I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. This is Starm's Early Childhood. These are the schools that were in the first cohort that went into construction last summer. Starm's is on the north side of Milwaukee. Here's a bioswale. That's one of the types of green infrastructure that help to soak in stormwater where it falls. It has native plantings that are grown in there. Here there's porous pavement, again, allowing more water to be soaked in. And then this picture is an example of porous pavement that's the rubber surfacing. And that's a good example of connecting the recreational interests from the school along with the environmental interest to soak in stormwater. And then also from a artistic and more cultural perspective, we're able to shape that, in this case, in the shape of Lake Michigan, and then the 3 major river waterways of Milwaukee too. So there's some really meaningful recreational components, arts components, environmental, all at these school projects, and musical components, new tree plantings, and I could keep going, but I'll just, for argument's sake, just keep moving forward. This is Longfellow Community School on 27th and just south of National. Their schoolyard redevelopment included synthetic turf field. This photo was taken before the turf was put down, but also included a greenhouse, another one of the bioswales, an outdoor classroom area, and then pavement games as well. We do want to emphasize we're not talking about removing all of the asphalt. We are talking about removing a significant amount, but keeping areas for basketball and other pavement games. This is Hawley Environmental. They had a significant amount of stormwater that ran down to one low point. In this case, there's a kickball field now there, and underneath there's a 20,000 gallon underground cistern. So every time it rains, that stormwater fills that cistern, and we're working with the school to install water level indicators so the students can connect the water level increase in the cistern to math and science activities. They also included an outdoor classroom as a part of this schoolyard redevelopment, and basketball and other recreational features as well. This is Burdick Elementary, and this is the last example that we're going to show today. This is just north of the airport. We were able to remove about 60% of the asphalt at this school and include an outdoor classroom, some tree plantings, and then there's a hoop house that was existing that we were able to resheet as a part of the project as well. We often get asked questions about how do we select the schools. The process to select the schools for this grant, the conceptual planning grant, schools apply to the Green Schools Consortium, which is managed by the nonprofit Reflow, through a 2-page application. And then we invite those schools to present. Each year we have about 10 schools present in front of about a 50-person committee that represents different organizations from across the region. And we ask each school to present on their need and enthusiasm for supporting these multi-year complex projects. And each year we work with 5 schools. So with that being said, I would ask Mr. Lopez if you wouldn't mind just communicating and just sharing what you shared with the Green Schools Consortium several months ago about why Hayes is interested specifically from a need and enthusiasm perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. For a need, one of the things that I mentioned at that meeting was, I was a student at Hayes when it was Kosciuszko Middle School, and that was about 27 years ago. And the only thing that has changed in that back playground is that they added a fence and they took some of that other area for teacher parking. So nothing much has really changed back there. I think the need was there. The students, I know, would every time they would see like the rocks, because the pavement was coming apart, so they would like put it together. They make a mound out of it, because there really isn't much or any green space back there. You see a picture there of a student when they saw the chapulín, right? And the kids were very intrigued, and it's very rare that we see any insects back there other than ants. So they were very intrigued when it came down to looking at the chapulín, the insect. The enthusiasm, this is my first year as being principal at Hayes Bilingual School. And one of the things that really, what I really liked about so far was the kids. The students are super involved. They asked me if there was something we can do about our recycling program. So it was initiated by the students. We revamped our program. What the students did then was present to the staff on how we can, to the staff and students, on how the new recycling program was going to work at Hayes. And not only that, in the front of the building, we do have some greenery up there, right next to like about the 50 steps you have to walk up to the main entrance. And there's a rain garden, and the students had come up to me and asked if it was possible for them to take over the rain garden, because that was the only greenery that they would see. Another need, I know part of working with Reflow is just seeing like parent involvement. And that's something that I know Ms. Mercado does a great job with. She's our parent coordinator. And at any given moment, if you walk into Hayes, you see at least about 10 parents in there willing and helping out, volunteering classes, just like culture. They have El Carrito de Literatura, a literature cart that they roll around and read to the students. So there's a great community at Hayes, and and they were willing and excited when we heard about possibly working with Reflow, how they just jumped on board to help out in any way possible. But there's a great need, and the enthusiasm is there, like I said, from all areas of staff too. I know Mr. Holt initiated this whole process, and when we asked teachers if they were willing to join us on this endeavor, they jumped on the opportunity right away. So the need and the enthusiasm is there, and it's going to be nice to see something different, because like I mentioned before, that playground in the back hasn't really changed in over 30 years.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So with that being said, this is where we are in the overall process. So I had introduced the major components up at the top. This process is largely driven around construction over the course of summer in 2022. So that would give us a full year of fundraising and a full year of conceptual planning. This effort is intended to undergo construction on the school grounds so that it limits the impact of the academic year, which is important. And to do that, it takes time to get all the contracts in place, to get all the detailed design work. And so working backward, we started here in January, and we've been meeting each month with the Green Team at Hayes, and here we are in May now. And we will be in this conceptual planning phase through fall of 2020 with the intent of wrapping up the overall conceptual plan before January, so that when we hit January, we have all of the materials ready to start writing grants, to reach out to potential funders, and go from there. There is opportunity, especially as we get back into fall, to start doing school fundraisers a little bit ahead of the game, which is great, and Reflow supports that as well. I should mention that Reflow support is throughout this 3-year plus process, and so Reflow is here. It's really important, from our perspective as a nonprofit, to really see these projects through. I'm an environmental engineer, and it's important that we are talking about feasible projects that can reasonably be built within this window as well. So that is the process and where we are right now. To date, what we've done for the conceptual planning, it started with some drone photos and some site photos. We also did historical record search through MPS archives. I should mention this is all done in conjunction with MPS facilities and maintenance as well. We also circulated a Schoolyard use survey to parents, teachers, and students as well. That's been helpful to understand what are the existing school activities, what are things that are going really well at the school, and how can we support the things that are going well, what are things that could be improved with the Schoolyard. And then we've been meeting on a monthly basis with the school green team, which has been really great, and we have these charrette design sessions. And so as a part of that, we went through, excuse me, everyone had a chance to kind of sketch some ideas on paper. We took all those ideas with CDS, the graduate students from UW-Milwaukee, put those all into one plan drawing. Last month, I believe it was, we got feedback on that first draft. We updated that first draft, and that's where we are today. So what we're about to review is the second draft of the conceptual plan. But I do kind of want to underscore 2 words. It's draft and conceptual. So there's plenty of opportunity to provide feedback today and in the coming weeks, and then realistically in the coming months as well. So with that being said, this is kind of one of our pauses for questions. Does anyone have any questions about the process or how we got to where we are right now? And in a minute, I'm going to show us what the conceptual plan, the draft conceptual plan looks like. We have provided here 5 different ways to provide feedback, just underscoring the fact that these digital processes are challenging with COVID, but we did go through an effort to put together a digital board where people can provide post-it notes essentially on some of the concepts. We also put together a form, so people, if you feel more comfortable filling out a digital form, I'll just show these off real quick. And they're in English and Spanish. I'll just kind of toggle this over. This is the Spanish version. But this is the Google form if you feel comfortable with responding with ideas or questions about what's included in the plan, what are the components you like. That can all be done through this form. We're also sharing all of the draft drawings in a shared folder. So if you're interested in downloading anything that we're all looking at, you can do that. And then this is a kind of imagine a digital flipboard that we can review. But are there any questions before I jump into this any further? Okay, great. So I'm just going to walk us through what's in the draft plan, and then we'll pause again for more questions. So here we are. North is up on this drawing. The school entrances, the main entrance is in the front of the school over here. Although we know that many students come in this back way as well. We're going to focus. I'll start. Maybe I'll start over here because this is maybe easier, and then we'll dive in the back schoolyard area. But in the front of the school, we're talking about supporting an outdoor classroom space, possibly adding some additional vegetation that act as like a screening to the major road. But there is a really nice flat grass space in the front of the school that could serve as an outdoor classroom space. We're also talking about putting in a potential bioswale to the north. All of the stormwater runoff from the parking lot all runs to the north, right to what it looks like it's going right near the homeowner's house nearby. And there's an opportunity there to soak in stormwater into the ground and reduce flooding and other issues. For the schoolyard, for the back of the schoolyard, just to kind of orient ourselves, the staff parking lot is this asphalt area. And so we're not talking about removing the asphalt parking lot. That's all staying in place. What the conversation has been about was removing the asphalt around I would say maybe 60% of the asphalt, and including an outdoor classroom space here immediately adjacent to the school. And we have some renderings from CDS that we can show to provide a little bit perspective of that. A lot of tree plantings. There are 2 existing half basketball courts. We're talking about refreshing those, including some asphalt markings for Foursquare and some other drawings. And then putting in a synthetic turf soccer field. We are talking about the synthetic option, which is more expensive up front because of the understood high demand for soccer and the understood use that this soccer field would get. The synthetic turf field also offers the opportunity to put in underground storage to be able to manage more stormwater. So that's a benefit as well. And we are talking, because all of this stormwater drains down to these blue dots, which are these stormwater inlets. We are talking about putting in a bioswale along the fence line between the parking lot and the schoolyard, and planting trees and soaking in that stormwater into the ground and treating it before it gets into the underground cistern that would be below the synthetic turf field. This feature here in the middle represents a hill. So as we do that digging to be able to install the underground stormwater storage, that generates a significant amount of soil. A really cost-effective way to be able to manage that is to keep it on site. There's also, that kind of creates a really cool feature from the schoolyard use perspective, that it just adds more terrain. A common question is, how tall would that hill be or that berm be? It wouldn't be, you would be able to see over the top of it. So to prevent anyone from hiding or hanging out behind it, the intent is to be able to provide a little bit of relief in the terrain as well. We're talking about putting in this little shaded area is a native landscaping area as well. So there's a sensory experience that can happen on the schoolyard. And we are talking about putting trees. This would be an ongoing conversation with MPS facilities and the recreation department about being able to put trees to the south on the South Stadium property. But these trees would help to shade the schoolyard as well. Just to provide some perspectives of what these look like. This is a rendering from CDS that shows the synthetic turf field. These images are intended to provide just a little bit more perspective on what the new space could look like. Remember, right now, this is all asphalt. And then as I kind of scroll over, here's a drone photo that shows that rendering on it as well. We're talking about the outdoor classroom space, trying to make use of the existing murals that are right there as well. So that acts as like a focal point for the outdoor classroom space. And if I just kind of scroll over one more, oops, and move that one over, we'll just take one look over here. And here's another perspective of that outdoor classroom space as well. Okay, so what I'm gonna show us, I guess, I'm gonna show how to respond to this. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna minimize this. So what we're gonna do in a minute is to open up this board so everyone can respond to this as well. And I'll just walk us through how to use this online tool. So on the far right, when you do get this link, you may have to click the stationary button on the top right, and that will expand a bar on the side. For our purposes today, the colors won't mean anything, but imagine this as like a digital poster board. And so what you can do is you can drag and drop these Post-it notes. And what we've done is we've set up these dotted line areas for questions, things that you may like about the schoolyard redevelopment, and I'll underscore draft and conceptual, and then other ideas that you may have for improvement. And so if you drag a Post-it note over, you can ask, let's say, how large is the outdoor classroom? You can put a question there, and then this will be an opportunity for us to be able to respond to these questions. If you don't feel comfortable with asking the question through this format now, over the course of the next 2 weeks, as we have this open, you can put these questions out there, and then we'll respond to them next month. And then also, please feel free to put Post-it notes down here as well. If you feel comfortable with it, you can play with some of the other notes that are in here. Further down the line, there are little, thumbs up and thumbs down. So if you like this question, or if you like what other people are saying, you can put thumbs up or thumbs down around these questions as well. But for our purposes today, feel free to use any of these colors. They're not going to mean anything. What we're really interested in understanding is, do you have any questions about this plan? What are the things that you like about it? And then what are the areas that you think it can be improved upon? Okay, so with that being said, are there any questions that I can respond to with everyone on the line? Okay, I'm just gonna lock this one real quick. Okay, so while we're thinking about that, maybe I'm just gonna share the link, and I'll put that in the comment box here. So if you see this in a second, you'll see a link come through the chat window. Click on through that if you feel comfortable with responding through that. And again, I do want to mention, this is just one way to provide feedback. We are inviting feedback through the Google form. And then also you can email Lisa Neeb, Reflow's Green Healthy Schools project manager as well, if there's any questions at all. And we are really hoping that we can organize an in-person meeting in fall as well to be able to respond to any questions that people may have in fall as well. Okay, maybe while we're thinking about those questions, I'm gonna just maybe talk through where we go from here. And I'll just kind of flip this over. Great, and people are in there. Awesome, you guys are responding to it. This is kind of the link up here. You can see who's all in it. Something I didn't mention that I should is that I can see who made these comments. So if you have a question that you would like followed up on, we can follow up with you because we have your email and we can just respond to you directly as well if that's helpful. But please do feel free to add more post-its, comment on the photos that are below it as well. But where we go from here, we'll take all of this feedback. We're hoping to get feedback within the next 2 weeks here, and then we'll take all of that and we'll follow up next month, responding to all the questions and making any refresh to the plans as needed. And then when we can get back together in fall, we're hoping to have a draft conceptual plan document. And I have here an example of what that overall document looks like. This is for La Escuela Fraternity in River West. They're dual language as well, and so this plan has English and Spanish components. But the plan has call-outs for the school's green team, all of the community partners, and then we communicate what the school story is. And so this will be a major component over summer and in fall to try to understand what the school story is, or how to communicate that effectively in this format. We work with the school district on getting the demographic data, and then we also communicate where in the city and within the sewerage district the project is located in. This is all about the process that we've reviewed. And then each of the conceptual plans touch on the major components. And so the big one, which ends up being about 80+%, sometimes 90+% of the overall project costs, are related to stormwater green infrastructure. And so that's a pretty big component. Furthermore, there's the outdoor educational component. A lot of schools have an interest in healthy food access. There's also arts and community engagement, which is great because you guys are already working with Arts at Large on the murals. And so we want to talk through how we can further expand on that. And then recreation and other site improvements are common themes throughout each of these schoolyard redevelopments. And to go back to what we're going to be doing over summer is, and in the fall, is to collect these quotes and project partners to be able to help communicate what the school story is. And so at the end of our session today, Lisa is going to send an email to everyone that logged in today with all of the links that I'm sharing through the presentation. But there's also an opportunity there if you want to start providing quotes, if you want to show your support for the schoolyard redevelopment, we'd be more than happy to start collecting that content so that we can come into the fall session with a draft of this conceptual plan document. And then in fall, we'll concentrate pretty heavily on the curricular connections as well. So we started that conversation this spring, but what we'll start to do is start to write that out in English and Spanish and include that in the overall conceptual planning effort as well. And in this case for Fraternity, they decided to call it out based on the school themes. This will be a conversation that we have over summer and fall about how to best organize this to fit the school culture. Okay, do we have any questions come through yet on the conceptual plan? We're solid, all right, that's all right. Yeah, please do make comments on this. Feel free to zoom in, drag and drop comments on specific features that make sense to talk through.
Justin, there's a couple comments like the color of the basketball courts, totally up for discussion. That isn't the exact color, that's just what we use to represent it. And there's a question about additional shading in the playground, which I'm guessing they mean the concrete area or the asphalt area. We've added a lot of trees, but that's more in the grass area, right?
Yeah, let's see what that question's about. Zoom in feature, sorry, I've been using, I shouldn't say that, that's a good question. Someone had asked, how do you zoom in? I'm using the squirrel button on my computer, on my mouse to do that. I know not everyone has that, but the greenery option, whoever asked that question, do you feel comfortable with explaining a little bit more about that question? Well, maybe that person unmutes themselves, I can explain. So what we are showing is our pathways that are crushed red granite. Crushed red granite is ADA accessible or wheelchair accessible, which is important as well. And so these plans are showing features that make it more usable by more people, which is great. What I think we'll want to show here, I'm just going to note it on here, is showing a ramp to go up to the top of that short stage area. Show ramp to stage. That's something I think we'll want to call out as well. These hexagon features are intended to be Gaga ball pits, which a lot of students get very excited about. They interact with those more typically at summer school camps, but these are what they look like. They're features that are kind of like a smaller scale dodgeball. It's a really effective way from a space perspective. You know, kickball is a large area with you know, a dozen or so students at a time. In this case, you can fit a dozen or so students in a much smaller area. I've talked with students that have said that it's much more inclusive because it's not overhand throwing balls. It's more of like rolling balls. So it's a little bit easier for all students to participate in those activities. And then in the back here, what we're talking about are logs and stumps and some of the more natural play equipment as well.
Justin, and I believe, I don't know if you mentioned this already, but remember right between the trees right next to the soccer field, didn't we talk about like there's benches that are gonna go in between those trees so that students, if they wanted to sit down and read a book and you know, that's where the benches would be.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So I think in our next iteration, we'll call those out. That's a good one. They're in there, I can see them. I just didn't mention it, but we'll call those out as benches. The idea is that kind of throughout in between these trees that there's opportunity for seating as well.
If you zoom into the aerial view, you can kind of see the benches there for them,
There we go. Yeah.
but there'll be an annotated site plan as well.
Yeah, benches.
And Henry, if you want to unmute and talk about your question, that would be great.
Okay. So what I was talking about earlier and the question is in the area of the playground, you can see all the asphalt. And I know there's like teachers who don't let their students go out beyond like the playground walls. So maybe having a bit of greenery where the asphalt is would be nice for the students, the younger ones.
So how, maybe you can help point that out where you're talking. Maybe this is the better way to see that. Which area are you talking about?
So in the bottom left corner, I know a lot of students, there's a bench there. So maybe some students could have some greenery around there. Because I know a lot of little kids like having greenery around them and they usually can't go outside of the playground walls.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
Hey there, this is Miss Julie from Hayes. I teach kindergarten. There's lots of concern among the teachers about the security of our playground area. There's lots of entrances and exits, and people from the neighborhood frequently pass through during recess time. So I'm kind of wondering if we've got gates built into the plan. And then also I'd just like to go on record as being pro 2 half-size soccer fields. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, I think in our next iteration here, we need to call out the gates. I know that's a conversation we had last time, and so just to I'm going to show gates. So the gates that we were talking about would be a gate here, where my mouse is hovering over. I know there's another gate over here. And what we're talking about, and we'll need to confirm this with facilities over summer, facilities and maintenance department, is the ability to be able to close those gates, maybe make them one way. We need to kind of explore what options. There's also a gate down here, which may be the more sensitive one. But those 3 gates are the ones that we will need to confirm over summer what our options are for either closing them off or putting latches on them so that they can be closed off during recess activities. Show gates.
Is there any plan to create gates at the entrance and end of the alley between the stadium and the building? That's an area where cars are able to go through, and often during recess there are delivery trucks that are parked there or even actively moving. I know it's not the main focus of the greening project, but I'm just wondering about that area too. Not
Yeah.
necessarily to the street level, but just like there's a door sort of just to the left of that one blue dot right there. And that would be, having gates there would just keep the kids so much safer, because most of the kids leave the cafeteria from right there and then walk down the alley to recess. So we're using it every day.
Gotcha, yeah. And it's not like a bollard. If I say bollard, you can kind of envision that. I know it's kind of a technical term, but it's you can see those poles that are in the asphalt or concrete. Some of them can be detached at the bottom. Those are effective for preventing vehicles from going into other spaces. But in this case, you're saying like a actual fence to cross that off, so students they just don't have the option to go near the vehicles, is what you're saying.
Yeah, just so they can't pass through during times when that area is actively being used.
Mm-hmm.
Bollards would be great as long as they can be removed at some point, or I don't know, lowered. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, just something so that while the kids are on the playground, we all know that they're safe. Because right now we're like, get out of the alley, you can't be in there, because we all know that a car could go through at any time.
So bollards may be, they're a little bit more feasible. So you think bollards would work?
I mean, as long as they can be, I don't know, lowered or something, because deliveries still have to get made to the kitchen, and that's the route that they go to the kitchen.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand this. I will follow up with this over summer for sure.
Thank you very much.
Justin, a question we had for the staff and teachers is, in front of the stage, do they want tables that are stationary? We show another option of seating on logs and stumps. We just need a little more direction on what kind of seating they would like in front of the stage area. We show tables on the site plan, but then we were showing something a little bit different here just to show options.
Yeah, and I think what we had talked about in previous conversations were like stumps and logs in the front row, and then possibly like a second tier behind it that would be picnic tables with a surface. So if you wanted to have a classroom go out there and they had to draw or they had to work on some assignment, they would have that flat surface that they could sketch on. Or if you wanted to do outside lunch, you could do that outside on that picnic table.
Okay, so both. Okay, so if we look at the site plan, we were just showing some tables. And are they movable picnic benches or something?
Yeah.
We don't know yet, just tables, so okay.
Yeah, I think based on other projects, it would be best if they were secured in the ground. So I think showing this all as crushed red granite and then securing those picnic tables through anchors and mounting those to that so they don't go away. I'm going to show that. Does that sound right to everyone else? Is that?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that's where the picnic tables were. And I thought, part of the thought process was if there was a class out there doing anything on the stage, then kids would be able to write and have something to write on.
Okay. Okay. Well, in 5 minutes, we're going to do a
And
Spanish
Julia,
version.
You had, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no, and I was just gonna, to answer, I think Julie's question about those 2 soccer fields, I think we talked about where the extra green spaces, possibly putting up like some like pug goals or just those goals that can kind of go in the grass. Or that could be an area where if kids wanted to play kickball or even just throw a football around, just to give them more options for those students that did not want to play soccer. But I know that that was thrown out there too. I know there was a question about possibly another soccer field or just leaving it open so that kids could play other sports there.
Yeah.
I think leaving that area open, the non-soccer field green area sounds great. I think personally, when I am at recess, the kindergartners want to play soccer, the second graders want to play soccer, and they don't want to play with each other. So if we had 2 half soccer courts, I don't know if that's a full one or a half one, but it just, I don't know. It was just a consideration because the second graders want to mow down the kindergartners, and the kindergartners are still learning how to do it. There's some really good ones, but they're still learning.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so in talking with Playworks, which is another nonprofit in Milwaukee that does some really great stuff around successful, recess, supporting recess activities. What they'll do is they'll color code more about the basketball surfaces, but in the line work, they'll change the line colors so that different activities can take place in different areas. So when you go to say, hey, let's go play soccer or basketball, you would say, go play on the blue soccer or the blue basketball court. And that could be one way. I do like this temporary soccer goals in this open green space. That may be a good option. I'm gonna say, we'll get you dimensions on this soccer field so we can communicate what the right size of the soccer field is for what age group.
Yeah, so that's a full-size U6, just
Gotcha.
because it's not as wide as other fields.
Thank you. Okay. So if anyone wants to hang in for the 5:30 Spanish version of this, by all means, please do. But again, just to kind of reiterate, please feel free to use that idea flip, use Google Forms. Lisa is going to send out an email to everyone that logged in today immediately after this meeting. So you have all of these links. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask Lisa. And then please feel free to provide that feedback by June 5th. Please share anyone that you think may be interested in providing feedback or may be interested in this. We're going to be going through this conceptual planning process all the way through fall and ending in December. So there's plenty of opportunity to provide some more feedback down the line as well. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Lopez, before we transition to the Spanish version?
No, just thank you to everyone for joining. I know some of the students are joining us. I know we have parents, some of the teachers. Dr. Baez, thank you for joining us in the meeting, and thank you, Reflow, for all the help and everyone on the team. So I just want to say thank you for everyone coming on.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
Just want to thank you all for your great job and working together with the school on this. This is great. I was involved in the Allen Field one, and I know this worked very well. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Perez. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And for those staying on for 5:30, the Spanish version, Lisa, are we using the same link? Is that true?
I think it's a different link.
A different link. Okay.
It is.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
No worries. So we're going to close this down and we're going to open up that other link that's in Spanish. I bet the invite went out in Spanish and everything too. So
Okay.
we'll talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, sorry, Justin.